Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. Today we're heading to Egypt.
And you're in for a treat.
Egypt has it all. It has this incredible history and vibrant culture.
Absolutely.
I think what really fascinates me about Egypt is that we're going to be going way beyond the pyramids and pharaohs.
Right.
We're talking about ancient origins. And we're also going to be talking about all the complexities of modern Egypt.
Yeah, what's so interesting about Egypt is it's not a simple story.
Right.
You know, it's not just like a linear progression. It's like this tapestry of environmental shifts, of power struggles, and cultural fusion.
Right.
Like, Egypt is a place where the past is constantly present. You know,
Yeah.
It's shaping the present and influencing the future.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Let's go way back to those ancient origins. We're talking evidence of human activity, like way back to the 10th millennium BCE.
Wow.
Which was a time when people were transitioning from hunting and gathering to settled agriculture.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just this like gradual evolution, was it?
No, not at all. I mean, climate change played a huge role.
Okay.
So as the Sahara Desert expanded, it pushed people towards the Nile River Valley,
Okay.
which became their lifeline, right? And so this environmental pressure, it actually helped spark the development of one of the world's earliest civilization.
It's so interesting, right? How sometimes like challenges can be catalysts for like incredible innovation.
Absolutely.
And like along the Nile, we see the rise of these pre-dynastic cultures like the Badarian and Naqada.
Yeah.
But here's something that I found really surprising. The earliest Lower Egyptian site, Merimda, predates its southern counterpart by 700 years.
Yeah, I know that's a detail that's often overlooked.
Yeah.
And it challenges the traditional idea that Egyptian civilization flowed solely from south to north.
Right.
It suggests, a more complex interplay of these regional developments that ultimately merged into a unified culture.
Yeah, and it just reminds us that history is like rarely a simple straight line.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's messy.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of complexities, let's talk about hieroglyphs, okay?
Yes.
Imagine the ingenuity it took to develop such a sophisticated writing system. And it appeared as early as 3200 BCE.
Right. I mean, and you have to remember that hieroglyphs, they weren't just a way to record information. They were an art form,
Yeah.
infused with symbolism and religious meaning.
Yeah.
And they provide us with this glimpse into the beliefs and the worldview of the ancient Egyptians.
Now, I know we can't really talk about ancient Egypt without mentioning pharaohs and dynasties.
Oh, of course not.
But I don't want to just list names and dates,
Yeah.
What I really want to do is kind of delve into what made these periods truly significant.
Okay, yeah.
So let's start with the Old Kingdom.
All right.
This is the age of those awe-inspiring pyramids.
Yes. And when you think about pyramids, think about the Pyramid of Djoser, which was designed by Imhotep,
Okay.
who was one of the earliest known polymaths. So architect, physician, and priest all in one. And so this pyramid, it wasn't just a tomb.
Okay.
It was a symbol of royal power, and it was a testament to, the advanced engineering and organizational skills of the time.
It's mind-boggling to think of the resources and the manpower required to construct those colossal structures.
Yeah.
And then we move into the Middle Kingdom. This was a period of stability and prosperity.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Right. And pharaohs, like Amenemhat III, they were overseeing this flourishing of art and literature.
What's so often overlooked about the Middle Kingdom is that it wasn't just about lavish tombs and temples.
Yeah.
It was a time of significant social mobility.
Okay.
Where commoners had opportunities to rise in status through education and service to the state. It's a reminder that even ancient societies were dynamic and capable of change.
Okay. Then comes the New Kingdom.
Ah.
The era of those iconic pharaohs we've all heard of, Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and Ramesses II.
The big names.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, each one left their mark.
Absolutely.
Not just through, military conquest, but also through religious reforms and cultural innovations.
Yeah, take Akhenaten, for example.
Yeah.
He didn't just build temples to honor the traditional gods. He introduced Atenism.
Okay.
This revolutionary belief system centered around a single god, the sun disk, Aten.
Wow.
Imagine the disruption that caused, challenging the authority of the priesthood and, reshaping the entire religious landscape of Egypt.
It's just amazing to think about how a single ruler could try to completely overhaul a society's belief system.
Right.
But as with any empire, Egypt faced, periods of decline and foreign rule.
Yeah.
And the arrival of the Persians, led by Cambyses II, kind of marked like a new chapter in Egyptian history. So Cambyses II declared himself pharaoh, right?
Yeah.
But instead of ruling from Egypt, he governed from Persia,
Yeah.
which actually set a precedent for future foreign rulers.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It's interesting how Egypt, like despite being conquered, always managed to retain its distinct cultural identity.
That's true.
And it wasn't just like this passive resistance,
Right.
Egyptians frequently rebelled against their conquerors. It shows this like remarkable resilience.
Precisely. Throughout their history, Egyptians have resisted foreign rule. And so after the Persians, we have Alexander the Great. And he ushers in the era of the Ptolemaic dynasty.
Okay.
And the Ptolemies were pretty clever rulers.
Okay.
They recognized the importance of incorporating Egyptian traditions into their rule.
Okay.
And they really presented themselves as like legitimate successors to the pharaohs.
Oh, wow. I have like a classic example of like cultural assimilation as a strategy for maintaining power.
It is.
Wow. And then comes Cleopatra VII, right? The last of the Ptolemies, a figure shrouded in like legend, romance, and ultimately tragedy.
Cleopatra's story is so captivating. But it's important to remember that she was a shrewd politician and a skilled diplomat, and she navigated this like complex power dynamics of the Roman world. And, ultimately her reign marked the end of an era because Egypt transitioned from a powerful kingdom to a Roman province.
Right. So we've journeyed from these ancient origins. We've gone through, these powerful pharaohs and foreign conquests. But the story of Egypt, it doesn't end there.
Oh, no.
Ahead lies the arrival of a new faith that would, fundamentally reshape the country's identity.
Islam.
Right.
And this wasn't just a change in religion. This was a cultural transformation that would leave an indelible mark on Egypt and, lead to this really unique blend of traditions and beliefs that continues to this day.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
The arrival of Islam in the 7th century, it wasn't simply a religious shift.
Right.
It was a cultural earthquake.
Yeah.
It reshaped the very fabric of Egyptian society.
And what's so remarkable is that Islam didn't just, replace existing beliefs.
No.
It intertwined with them.
Right.
Creating this, fascinating blend of traditions.
Exactly. Think about the rise of Sufi orders in Egypt, these mystical branches of Islam, right?
Yeah.
They incorporated elements of local beliefs and practices.
Okay.
And this gave rise to this, rich spiritual landscape that's unique to the region.
It's just such a great example of how cultures are constantly evolving,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Adapting to new influences
Yeah.
while holding on to their core identities.
Exactly. And, during this Islamic period, Cairo emerges as, a global powerhouse.
Right. Not just a political center,
Right.
but a beacon of knowledge and culture.
Absolutely. Think about the Fatimid dynasty.
Okay.
They established Cairo as their capital in the 10th century.
Okay.
And under their patronage, the city blossomed into this major center of Islamic scholarship, art, and commerce.
Oh, wow. It's you can almost picture the bustling streets, the grand mosques and libraries,
Yeah.
the lively intellectual debates taking place in the heart of Cairo.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about ideas either. Cairo became this vital hub for trade, connecting Egypt to the wider world.
Right. By the late 13th century, Egypt controlled this vast trading network,
Yeah.
linking the Red Sea to India, Malaya, and the East Indies.
This strategic location, it made Egypt incredibly prosperous,
Yeah.
but it also made it vulnerable because
Yeah.
this prosperity, it attracted the attention of powerful empires.
Like who?
Well, in the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire, led by Sultan Selim I, conquered Egypt,
Oh, wow.
incorporating it into their vast domain.
So even under Ottoman rule, Egypt didn't simply fade into the background.
No, not at all. The Mamluks, this powerful military caste,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They continued to wield considerable influence within Egypt,
Okay.
making it a challenging province for the Ottomans to control.
It seems power struggles were this recurring theme in Egyptian history.
Yeah, for sure. And then comes this pivotal moment in the late 18th century, Napoleon's invasion.
Oh, wow.
Napoleon's arrival in 1798 was a game changer.
Okay.
It exposed the vulnerabilities of the Ottoman Empire and sparked a chain of events that would lead to the rise of a new power in Egypt.
Okay.
Muhammad Ali Pasha, a shrewd and ambitious Albanian commander
Okay.
who emerged from the chaos following Napoleon's departure.
Ali is often considered the founder of modern Egypt.
Yeah, and for good reason. I mean, he implemented a series of reforms that transformed the country.
Yeah.
Modernizing the army, establishing new industries, and developing a modern state bureaucracy.
Wow. And he even introduced long staple cotton in 1820, which revolutionized Egyptian agriculture.
Yeah.
It made the country a major player in the global cotton market.
It did. But this economic shift also had its downsides. It created this dependence on monoculture, which made Egypt vulnerable to fluctuations in international cotton prices.
It's a reminder that, even seemingly positive economic changes can have unintended consequences.
Absolutely. And speaking of economic changes, we can't forget about the Suez Canal.
Ah, yes. That monumental engineering feat, right.
Okay.
That connected the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, shortening trade routes, transforming global commerce.
Completed in 1869, it was a marvel of engineering.
Yeah.
But its construction came at a steep price for Egypt.
How so?
It led to mounting debt and ultimately British occupation in 1882.
Wow.
The British, they saw control of the canal as vital to their strategic interests.
Right.
And their occupation would have a profound impact on Egypt's political and economic development for decades to come.
Right. So we've seen how Islam reshaped Egypt, how Cairo became this global center, and how new powers like the Ottomans and the British arose on the scene.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Right. But through it all, the spirit of the Egyptian people remained strong.
Absolutely.
As they navigated these challenges and continued to shape their own destiny.
And that brings us to the 20th century.
Okay.
A period of revolutions, wars, and the ongoing struggle for independence and self-determination. It's a century filled with dramatic events that would redefine Egypt's place in the world. So as we move into the 20th century, Egypt finds itself at a crossroads.
Right.
Grappling with the legacies of colonialism, the rise of nationalism, and this desire for self-determination.
Yeah, it's a time of immense change and upheaval.
Yeah.
And you see figures like Saad Zaghloul emerging as leaders of the independence movement.
Yeah, Zaghloul and the Waft Party, they played a crucial role in advocating for Egyptian autonomy, challenging British control and demanding greater political freedom for the Egyptian people.
And their efforts ultimately led to Egypt's formal independence in 1922, although British influence kind of persisted, for decades to come.
Right.
But gaining independence was just the first step, right?
Yeah.
Egypt then had to navigate the complexities of building a new nation, forging its own path in this rapidly changing world.
Absolutely. And this path, it wasn't always smooth. Egypt faced internal challenges, economic struggles, and the looming presence of external powers vying for influence in the region.
Right. And then came World War II.
Yeah.
Which further highlighted Egypt's strategic importance.
Exactly.
So even though Egypt remained officially neutral,
Right.
it actually became a battleground as the Allied and Axis powers kind of clashed in North Africa.
Yeah, the war had a profound impact on Egypt. I mean, exposing the weaknesses of the existing political order. And it fueled this growing sense of discontent among the population.
And this discontent ultimately culminated in the 1952 revolution.
Led by the Free Officers Movement.
Right.
This group of young military officers determined to overthrow the monarchy and establish a new republic.
And this revolution, spearheaded by figures like Gamal Abdel Nasser, it marked a turning point in Egyptian history.
Absolutely. It ushered in an era of Arab nationalism, socialist policies, and a strong emphasis on Egyptian identity.
Nasser became this towering figure, not just in Egypt, but across the Arab world. And his nationalization of the Suez Canal in 1956, it was a bold move, right?
Oh, yeah.
Challenging Western dominance, asserting Egypt's sovereignty.
But, this act, it triggered the Suez Crisis.
Right.
This conflict involving Israel, Britain, and France.
Right.
And although Egypt emerged victorious, the crisis had lasting repercussions for the country's relationship with the West.
Yeah, and Nasser's Pan-Arabist vision also led to Egypt's involvement in regional conflicts, including the North Yemen Civil War.
A very complex and protracted struggle.
Right.
That drained resources and ultimately ended in stalemate.
Yeah. And then in 1967 came the devastating Six-Day War, a conflict that would reshape the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East.
Absolutely. The war was a crushing defeat for Egypt.
Right.
It resulted in Israel's occupation of the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip, and, it really dealt a blow to Nasser's Pan-Arabist aspirations and cast a shadow over the nation.
And the war's aftermath saw the implementation of emergency laws.
Right, granting the government like sweeping powers.
Right.
And curtailing civil liberties.
Yeah.
Measures that would remain in effect for decades.
Despite these setbacks, though, Nasser left a mixed legacy.
Yeah.
He implemented significant social reforms, expanding access to education and healthcare, while also championing a vision of a strong and independent Egypt.
Right. But his socialist economic policies, they also led to inefficiencies, and they kind of stifled private sector growth, creating challenges that his successors would have to address.
Right. So upon Nasser's death in
Thank
1970,
you.
Anwar Sadat kind of takes the helm, and he initiates this shift in Egypt's foreign policy and economic direction.
He did. He moved away from the Soviet Union, aligned Egypt with the United States, and sought to attract foreign investment through his Intitak economic reform policy.
Sadat's decision to launch the Yom Kippur War in 1973, a surprise attack aimed at regaining territory lost in the Six-Day War, once again thrust Egypt onto the world stage.
It did.
And while the war initially caught Israel off guard,
Yeah.
it ultimately ended in a negotiated settlement,
Right.
which paved the way for the historic peace treaty between Egypt and Israel in 1979.
This treaty, it was brokered by U.S. President Jimmy Carter, was a groundbreaking achievement.
Yeah?
It marked the first peace agreement between Israel and an Arab state.
Right.
It was a bold and controversial move,
Yeah.
costing Egypt its membership in the Arab League, but opening this new chapter in its relationship with Israel.
Right. But Sadat's peace initiative, made him a target for extremists, leading to his assassination in 1981. And his successor, Hosni Mubarak, would rule Egypt for 3 decades, a period marked by relative stability, but also growing discontent.
Right. Mubarak maintained peace with Israel, strengthened ties with the West, but, his regime faced criticism for corruption, human rights abuses, and a lack of political freedoms. And despite some economic reforms, poverty and unemployment persisted.
Right.
And this fueled social unrest.
Yeah. And then in 2011, the Arab Spring uprising swept across the region, sparked by a Tunisian street vendor's self-immolation, and fueled by social media and this deep yearning for change.
And in Egypt, massive protests erupted in Cairo's Tahrir Square, demanding Mubarak's resignation and an end to his authoritarian rule.
The protests, fueled by this diverse coalition of activists, students, and ordinary citizens, forced Mubarak to step down after 30 years in power. It was a moment of euphoria.
Right.
But the transition to democracy, it proved to be turbulent and fraught with challenges.
Absolutely. And, the subsequent years saw the rise and fall of the Muslim Brotherhood, a military coup, and the election of Abdel Fattah el-Sisi as president.
Right.
El-Sisi's rule has been marked by this crackdown on dissent, raising concerns about human rights and restrictions on freedom of expression.
So Egypt's story continues to unfold.
Yeah.
Right. It's this complex and dynamic narrative. It's shaped by internal struggles, regional dynamics, and global forces. It's a country of immense potential, facing challenges, but also holding on to this rich heritage and a resilient spirit.
Now, beyond the political landscape, let's take a moment to appreciate Egypt's remarkable geography.
Okay.
It's far more than just pyramids and deserts,
Right.
Imagine the life-giving Nile River just snaking through the country.
Yeah.
Its fertile banks, supporting agriculture and sustaining life for millennia.
Right. And then there's the Sinai Peninsula.
Well, yeah, this land bridge connecting Africa and Asia,
Wow.
with its rugged mountains and the stunning Red Sea Riviera, famed for its beaches and coral reefs. Think of the vibrant marine life thriving beneath those azure waters.
It's beautiful.
It is a testament to the biodiversity of this unique ecosystem. And let's not forget Egypt's climate.
Right. Hot, sunny, and incredibly dry.
Yes, it shaped the rhythms of life for centuries.
And this arid climate has made water management a critical issue throughout Egypt's history.
Totally.
From the ancient pharaohs building irrigation systems to modern efforts to conserve this precious resource.
Absolutely. And speaking of ancient traditions, we can't overlook the rich tapestry of Egyptian culture and society.
Right.
Yeah.
Think about those iconic pyramids and temples.
Yes. Architectural marvels that have captivated the world for centuries.
Yeah.
They stand as testament to the ingenuity, artistry, and organizational skills of the ancient Egyptian.
And Egyptian literature, one of the oldest in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It offers a window into the human experience across time, from the wisdom of ancient texts to the works of Nobel laureate Naguib Mahfouz. Egyptian writers have explored themes of, like, love, loss, faith, and the complexities of the human condition.
And who can resist the allure of Egyptian music, right? This vibrant blend of indigenous, Mediterranean, African, and Western influences. I mean, the legendary singer Kulthum. She continues to captivate audiences with her powerful vocals and timeless melodies, a testament to the enduring legacy of, like, Egyptian musical traditions.
And of course, no exploration of Egypt would be complete without mentioning the cuisine.
Oh, the food.
Right.
A symphony of flavors, spices, and aromas that reflect the country's, like, diverse cultural influences.
Right, from the savory full madams, like a staple breakfast dish, to the fragrant koshari, this, like, hearty mix of lentils, rice, and pasta.
So good.
Right.
Yeah.
Egyptian food is like this delicious journey for the senses. So we've taken you on this whirlwind tour through Egypt's, like, long and fascinating history, its unique geography, and its vibrant culture. It's a country of contrasts, ancient and modern, facing challenges yet, like, brimming with potential.
Egypt's story is far from over.
Right.
It's a story that continues to be written, shaped by the hopes, dreams, and struggles of its people.